Hey, welcome to another episode of Enta Asks, where we hear epic stories from great people about the businesses that you want to work with.
Click below and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Or if you want to be on our show and tell your epic story, our link to get on our show is in the description below.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Enta Asks. I'm Adam Colazetti.
And I'm Caitlin Bullock.
And today we are very excited for an extra special episode because we have not one, but two companies with us here today. First, we have Dan Pichette, who's an executive VP at Output. And we have Blaine Jansen, who is an associate at Intuitive and the leader of their innovation team. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So we have talked about so many amazing things, okay? We have talked about culture, right? We've talked about the secret of getting the most out of innovation in your company. We have talked about impact, which is a Dragon's Den-like solution, and that came to this amazing new innovation for you guys, which is NU, right?
Yeah.
And so today what we really want to talk about is what does the future look like, both at Intuitive and at Output. And so, you've just implemented NU. What does the future look like? Do you evaluate the success, and what does the future look like for you guys?
Absolutely. We've spent a lot of time over the past few years, like we've talked about, in terms of understanding our innovation journey. And it's pretty clear that this agility and iteration is really key. So inside of that, you really Intuitive View is a great example. It proposed some value. We built a test. We've seen some success. But at the same time, we have to stay true to the original value proposition and understand if it's still working. Mm-hmm. And so taking that concept and that discipline behind it across our whole portfolio of activities in innovation, small ones and big ones, is something that we're really putting some horsepower behind and some process to make that a reality throughout the organization. And you want to make sure that you have a process, but it can't be so rigid that it stifles creativity. Mm-hmm. So that's been an interesting process for us, for sure.
Well, I love that you said process, by the way. That's our jam. But when you talk about innovation, it could be a thing, like an invention. It could be changing a process. It could be a platform like NU. The sky's the limit, right? It's just making something new or better, which is super awesome. And so the process for which you guys innovate, what happens? Is that continually evolving as you kind of measure stuff and see what works?
Absolutely. And everyone can define innovation for themselves. Mm-hmm. I won't go into the long-worded definition of innovation that Intuitive has, but there's a key component of that that's really important to talk about, and that's value. Right. So we've thought a lot about what value means for Intuitive and sort of what levers we have the ability to move to impact that value. Mm-hmm. So we kind of look at it through three different levers. One of them is revenue, generation of revenue growth. The other one is cost efficiency. And then the third one is a social, cultural benefit. And that's really to people at Intuitive or the places that we live and work. Right. Yeah. So all of the ideas that we're, strategically considering, we can understand which of those levers is going to add value. And that kind of leads you down the path of understanding how you can measure the success of that as you embark on various tests.
And this is so important because it's so hard not to be emotionally attached to your innovation.
That's right, yeah.
When it's no longer working for you to be able to say, hey, it's ran its course, it's time to retire. And that's hard because we get emotionally attached to these things. Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, you might be going down one value path and hit some walls and discover a different one. And without some discipline behind taking a step back and saying, okay, you're right, this other lever applies, but before we proceed, let's take a step back and understand how much value is potentially there. Because maybe there's a lot and you should be going in that direction, but you can't do it blindly.
Right.
Well, and I think if you take those concepts of value and changing, because at the start with your program, you might measure success by how many submissions you get, right?
Yeah.
And then after a while, it's going, no, the quantity is not as important as the quality. So now maybe you're measuring the quality of the pitches, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe you get a little more sophisticated and you throw that out and now you're measuring something else, right? So even how you measure is not a fixed thing.
Absolutely not. No, it definitely has to change. You have to keep evaluating why you're trying to do something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And last episode, we spoke a bit about how we were aligning our innovation strategy with our broader business strategy. And that's a huge part of iterating on all of this process related stuff.
Okay, I want to talk on a touchy subject. Can I talk on a touchy subject?
Sure.
I think I know.
Okay.
Let's try.
Okay, so for those of you who are in the service-based, engineering law firms, utilization. So how do you? This is a thing. So for anybody who doesn't know, utilization is like I measure how many hours are chargeable back to a client, and a lot of engineering firms require 80% or higher utilization. So you're kind of getting penalized in a sense of any time that's not spent directly chargeable to a client. And innovation inherently, outside of a project isn't chargeable to a client. And so how do you deal with these competing pieces of your industry?
The episode's probably a little too short to get into all the details. However, I will say that there's probably two parts of the answer, but the part that relates directly to innovation is that Intuitive as an organization has invested in innovation. So without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, it's, there are abilities to have innovation as a project that you're able to bill your time to. Which, things like the Dragon's Den Impact Challenge that we talked about last time, there's resources that are allocated to putting together the pitches. On the broader idea of or concept of utilization and timesheets, it's a challenge. It's been a topic of conversation in a lot of efforts inside of Intuitive that we've undertaken.
Might be the next Impact Challenge.
We've had some responsive design sprints. We're trying to understand what we could do to better measure the value that we deliver, not the time that we spend on things.
Right, because it drives the wrong behavior.
It absolutely does. There's some benefits there too, but we think that there's some opportunities that we can leverage in the long term for sure.
Oh, I'd love to hear how you guys solve that problem.
Yeah.
So I absolutely commend you guys on investing in innovation, and you're seeing the returns on your investment.
We are, yes.
And that's probably tenfold.
Yeah, it's, we're definitely starting to quantify a lot of what we were talking about earlier, measuring success and overall looking at the impact of our broader portfolio, so that we can make sure that we can continue to add value as we grow.
I love it. It's awesome. So what about the future for Output? Because, Intuitive had a process, and you guys have been working together to collaborate, but what if my process is different? Or I'm trying to solve problems and not necessarily be how does that work with the new client?
Yeah, that's the reality. Everybody has their own process and their own way they like to do things, and sometimes they're doing new things for which they don't really have a process, or you just need to get started somewhere.
Right.
The nice thing about Output and what we've worked really hard to achieve is, that our system works in a way that it moves you along. So to ensure that things are moving along, that you're not getting too heavily invested at stage one and ultimately sunk cost bias and other remorseful type behaviors, refusing to let go of that project tend to surface, right?
Yeah.
We've been very careful to enable any type of process, whatever steps you have in your sprints or in your other ways of achieving things, we can accommodate that, and that's something that's quite easily done. What's important is that you do it and that you document it and that you have the ability to go back and look at and see what's working, what isn't, and that's one thing Intuitive does really well when they run, the competition. Is their impact competition the last couple of years? They have, a fairly robust idea submission process that they've had, since the beginning, and that's initially where our engagement started. They do other things as well relating to, quite subject matter specific things that they're trying to improve within the organization. That's really what it's all about, is enabling them to do it a fairly flexible and agile way, and to look back and evaluate that, and obviously improve what isn't working, and keep doing what is, and that just really creates that. So the documentation is huge, and that's something they've done really well. And they run, dozens of different challenges and sprints every year, and those things are transparent and have all sorts of elements that really help them, get that information they need to make the decision that they need to make to move forward. And that's really awesome. So that's where we're focused, of course, is continuing to augment that ability, continuing to provide data that's helpful for them to make those evaluations. And sometimes, obviously, we're always looking to improve tools and enhancements and things that can, help them, achieve more with what it is that we're doing. But we're very proud of what we have already, and there's a lot there, so that's great.
I love that you talked about documentation, because we have this discussion all the time with clients, because they'll say, well, it works. Why should I write it down? Why? And there's some truth to that. There is, a balance there. But it is hard to improve something until you write it down and say, this is how we're doing it. It's harder to, I
We
think,
have to.
change it.
Yeah.
You think it might work, but could it work a lot better? And could it work better differently? And the reality is, we think we understand how things are achieved within an organization, but I would challenge you to think of a process that you think is fairly simple and try to document it end to end. And then go ask the people that are actually involved in that process and realize how many steps live in their heads that you've missed. And that's really a point. So until you visualize something end to end, including the people that are involved, how are you going to get an accurate picture of what is happening in your organization?
Yeah.
And doing that exercise is huge because people get a visual representation of what they're involved in. They see where they can add value. They see who depends on them and what they depend on. And it's part of that education experience where you're not only asking people to add value, but you're helping them better understand ways in which they can do that. And that's really important. So the process visualization is a big part, and the ability to do that is very, very valuable.
Amazing. And I always, what I love about softwares like Output is there's always a new feature being worked on or something that you're innovating. So, what's coming down the pipeline for Output? What kind of trick do you have up your sleeve
Can
that
you
we
tell
haven't
us?
seen yet? Yeah.
Yeah, our problem is not identifying, what to do next. It's looking at our very busy roadmap and deciding what to prioritize. And so there's certainly lots of ideas, and the reality is the prioritized things obviously come from our customers like Intuitive that are trying to achieve very specific things,
Right.
and we will incorporate those if they obviously make sense for the broader vision and audience of what it is that we're doing. And so we've got all sorts of different things that are relating to encouraging people, whether it's game design or otherwise, to participate in various challenges. We're looking to increase the evaluation metrics and things that we're doing there. Certainly providing dashboard data and other data to help somebody like Blaine at a snapshot quickly see what's going on and be able to represent that to the board or to his superiors and be accountable for it. And so those are the types of things that we're doing. But at a high level, we're focused on improving agility, improving feedback loops, and improving visual tools to help management of all of this ecosystem.
Wow. Well, I mean, can't be an innovation platform and not innovate yourself, right?
Yeah, you have to.
You gotta walk the walk.
Constantly challenge what you're doing, and it's really hard to get rid of stuff. But I've gotten better at it. But if it's really not working and it could be done better, we have that problem as well. And like every other software company, it's a very sensitive and dangerous road.
Sounds like timesheets.
Yes. Thankfully, I have
There you
not
go.
completed a timesheet in 5 or 6 years. I'm
Okay.
quite grateful.
All right.
Freedom.
Yeah. Freedom from the 6-minute interval.
Yeah, right? Or the weekly dartboard, I used to call it.
Yeah.
But guys, it was an absolute pleasure having you guys here. It is so cool to see the success story of two groups coming together and amplifying each other to just like the exponential.
Yeah, thanks. It's been fun.
It's fantastic.
Excellent. So just before we go, how can we get a hold of you guys? Because obviously there's a lot of companies out there that, like I said before, they want to get the word innovation off their wall into their process and amplified. So how do they get a hold of you?
Certainly, if they want to learn more about Output, go to our website at output.co. If they want to reach me personally, I'd love to have a conversation about what you're trying to achieve and how we can help you do it. You can reach me by email at dan@output.co.
Thank you. And Blaine, how do we reach you guys?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about what we do at Intuitive, intuitive.com on the web. And if you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn. That's the way.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember, if you know somebody that might want to be on End to Ask, just click the link below.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.